Do you want to get married again after 50? A lot of people out there are looking for love, either for the second, third, who, or maybe even the first time after 50. Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I am so happy to welcome back divorce and family law attorney Jonathan Noble. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us again.
My pleasure, Silka. Always happy to be here. Always happy to be.
It's been a few months. I know you've been really busy. Jonathan has been here numerous times to hundreds and thousands of views and comments. You have a way of engaging people that they either love you or not so much. You give honest advice. And that's really what we want to talk about today, an important topic for our demographic especially. Do you want to get married again after 50? A lot of people out there are looking for love, and that's the next step for many is, getting married again, either for the second, third, or maybe even the first time after 50. I don't know, but I know there's different considerations than, when you're younger. And there's lots of advice floating around out there. And that's one of the reasons I wanted you here today, because one of the articles I ran across gives some very specific advice about what to do, what to discuss, what you need to know before getting married again after 50. So how do you want to start on this, Jonathan? I know you have strong opinions about this.
Yeah, I do have strong opinions about a lot of things. And being a divorce lawyer, I have strong opinions about getting remarried after 50. Now, the article was second marriage or remarriage. So first of all, as a preface, this is not legal advice. I'm a divorce attorney, but if you have a specific question about the law, check with a local legal counsel licensed in your jurisdiction. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey in the United States. I know you have viewers all over the world. Okay, so first, every relationship is like a fingerprint in my mind. No two relationships are exactly alike. This is not a universal one-size-fits-all conversation, but it will give you food for thought, especially through my lens as a divorce lawyer. We could start off, we could talk about the article and then talk about some of the things that I didn't agree with and things I hope the audience thinks about before they dive headfirst into holy matrimony.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the first thing that she says here is the most important is finances, that you should have a detailed conversation about who pays for what. What's mine is yours and what yours is mine. Not a good idea. And by doing so, even though it's uncomfortable, you eliminate any false expectations. What do you say?
I think that in my own experience and the experience of people in my circle, finances really isn't the number one thing, because as long as you both are like food secure and you have enough to live on alone, a lot of times I see people where one has like 20x the other person has, and the finances really never come into play, because what's the person that has $30 million net worth and the other person has very little, they're not splitting the electric bill. They're not splitting the grocery bill. The first thing that I would ask, even before that, is marriage really necessary? Okay. Especially if you've come out of a bad divorce. Now, there are people who are widowed, or there's other situations, or people have never been married and they want to get married for the first time after 50. They're kind of in a different category too. So there's no one answer, this is how it should be. But if you've been divorced, especially if you've gone through the divorce machine and it's been an expensive, ugly ordeal that's dragged on, I would ask you to think closely whether or not you want to bring state law into your life unnecessarily. Once you say I do, everything changes in terms of the eyes of the law. So that's the first question. Is marriage is it absolutely necessary?
I so agree with you. I'm so glad you brought that up because obviously, as you know, I'm in that. I don't want to get married again. And I think everything changes after you get married. Again, my opinion, I know that marriage is important to a lot of people, but that's a great question. Why are you really getting married? So, and also with finances, the way that these discussions are laid out, I frankly can't imagine. It sounds nitpicky to me.
I wouldn't over index finances, believe it or not.
Right,
So
right, great. Well, let's move on to number two. Something to consider is kids, no matter how old they are, that there needs to be a discussion about kids. What if what if they still live there? What if they want to move back in, et cetera, et cetera.
I would also add to that grandchildren, because in our demographic, a lot of the people we could be in a relationship with have children who have children.
Mhm.
So I would probably not want to get involved with a woman who had 8 grandchildren who all lived in the same county, who were all like from infant to preschool age,
Mhm.
because I would never really get to see, or couldn't get to see, the person I'm interested in enough. They're
Mhm.
always babysitting. They're always, it could be an impediment to growing the relationship
Mhm.
and really having it bloom. Now, that being said, if there's a grandchild and there's a schedule, that's a little different. So it's case by case. But
Mhm.
if a child wants to move back in, an adult child, I've seen cases where people who are of retirement age are still supporting their
Right.
children in their 30s and 40s.
Yep.
And unless there is an excess of funds to do that, it could impinge on your travel, it could impinge on your lifestyle. So you should talk about that with the other person and get a feel for it.
Yeah.
See whether or not it's untenable, or it's not going to let the relationship bloom the way you want it to.
Yeah, kids can absolutely break a relationship, adult children. We've talked about that. And, nothing against kids. I happen to have a
Yeah.
great relationship with Paul's adult children. So I don't want to come off as being negative, but yeah, it's a huge, huge concern. My former spouses, the 25-year marriage, not so much. I mean, I've had it both ways, and it's definitely a conversation that, you want to have.
You're not
Uh,
going to win that battle, by the
no, and
way.
and you shouldn't even enter the battle. It's already lost.
It
You know.
is. And it's really something that people need to take a close look at,
Mhm.
self-awareness around it. Someone's in a relationship with you, they want to be with you, you need privacy. And now, that being said, if some adult child needs to get on their feet and come back and
Mhm.
live with you for a period of time, that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and then she says here the household in general. Now, this is one. I'll just preface it by saying I just so not agree with having this conversation. Is who's doing the cooking, the cleaning? Are you okay with wet towels on the? You're really seriously going to sit down and talk about nitpick what they might leave his toothbrush on the sink?
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
So there's got to be a vetting process, right? If you are intent on getting married, I think at least a couple of year vetting process, and maybe you could live together an additional year. And there's loving ways to say, hey, if you found someone who loves you and you love, and they don't put the cap back on the toothpaste, big deal.
So agree with that. So agree with that. That there's some things that just don't matter. And it might be a little irritating for you to, I mean, I get it. Like, Paul, I'm not talking behind his back. He's not as, I'm more neater than he is. And I got over that a long time ago because it just doesn't matter. You want your house a certain way, just do it and shut up.
Right. I
you
agree
know,
100%.
yeah, I mean, he's
So
not doing it out of disrespect. It's just a habit. Deal with it. And I think having a conversation about that. If somebody sat me down and said, "Well, let's talk about that. Who's going to do what? Are you?" It's like that's like a huge red flag. I wouldn't want to be with that person. So I
yeah,
don't
but
know
there are people who are so set in their ways, and
Mhm.
if you move into their domicile, if you move into their residence,
Mhm.
and you don't do make the bed the right way, or
Yeah.
do whatever it is that they're used to, that could be a sign that maybe marriage isn't for you.
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
know it's extremely difficult to find that level of love and affection from a partner, a committed partner,
Yeah.
and you're going to blow this up because they have some idiosyncrasy or they don't do things exactly the way you want.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a sign you shouldn't marry them.
I
So
totally
just a
agree.
thought,
Yeah, totally
everybody's
agree.
got to give a little.
Yeah. Then retirement. Yeah, retirement is important. But again, some of the things that she draws out, I don't know. I want to get your opinion, but like when to retire, what does retirement look like for you? Do you have totally different visions of it? And then what happens if one person gets sick, etc. So how do you advise the retirement discussion?
Yeah, retirement is a subject that can be discussed. I know personally, I'm never going to fully retire,
Hmm.
even if I take pro bono cases where
Hmm.
I'm helping somebody who could never help themselves. There's a reason to get up and a purpose, and
Yes.
I could still travel and do all the things I want to do.
Hmm.
But to be totally retired and, play golf or whatever all day, I don't see myself doing that. Now, if I was with a significant other that had that as a goal, that would be fine. I mean, to me, but
Hmm.
just doing nothing is
No.
not in my cards at
Right.
all. I'll go crazy.
Yeah, me
And
too.
that's a good thing. Now, if one person is expecting you to retire and
Hmm.
just do nothing but travel, there are people who go on cruise ships and live on them
Yeah.
all year round, free medical care and all that.
Hmm.
That would definitely not be me. I'm
Yeah.
also not a warm weather person. I could tell you that I wouldn't want to live in South Florida and I wouldn't want to live in places that don't have seasons.
Hmm.
And somebody could say, look, then you're not for me. And
Hmm.
that would be the end of it.
Yeah.
It's a big decision.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then, and lastly, one of the big points, will and estate planning.
Well, that's really a big issue if you're going to get married for a second, third, or fourth time, because
Hmm.
especially if you have children.
Hmm.
So there are legal devices you can put in place to protect your issue, or another word for children, with prior marriages. So maybe you can have a life insurance policy in place if you pass away. All these things need to be discussed if you're thinking about getting married. But once you get married, a lot of
Yeah.
rights and responsibilities attached that can be very difficult for your children from a former marriage. So
Hmm.
do estate planning and do it the right way. Set up a
Hmm.
trust. Make sure your beneficiaries are set up the right way.
Hmm.
But just to like marry somebody quickly because you're lonely,
Hmm.
or don't do that. Do not do that.
You know what I'm surprised at, Jonathan, that even at our age, how much pressure there is to get married by friends, even so when are you guys going to get married? Where's the? Yeah, I know I get that a lot. I have gotten it a lot, and it's like, well, first of all, whose business? Why is it their business? And to me, just the whole idea of having all these discussions, it just takes so much away from the romance and the love that we have. I don't want to go there. I don't want to get married and think about that. Do you run into a lot of people that think like I do?
I do, especially if they've been divorced. Now, I'm
Hmm.
in 100% agreement with you. And I've met you and Paul in
Yes.
person, and you guys are a great couple. I would hate to do anything to throw a wrench into your relationship
Yep.
where, I mean, you're both very, very good looking and personable, and not trying to pump up everybody's tires here, but you guys have a great relationship.
Hmm.
And why bring state law into
I 100%
yours?
agree, and I know Paul does too. So yeah, and so those are to me, that's the biggest thing to think about before getting married or remarried after 50 is, do you really need to? And I know there's people, from a moral perspective, religious or whatever, that's important to them, and that's okay. I'm not here to judge that. I just yeah, if think about it, and
Yeah,
argue with the right person.
when people come in for a prenup consultation, I'll tell them, look, if you get married, your divorce is going to be subject to these divorce laws.
Mm.
It's like 1,000 pages, but that's not all. How about the alimony and support practice that you're going to have to be subject to another couple thousand pages? is marriage really necessary? So, but again, there are some people that have terrific relationships.
Mm-hmm.
There is a very narrow area where somebody could say, well, my partner of 10 years has a terminal illness and their health insurance won't cover it.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get married, I can prolong their life or maybe have them treated properly.
Mm-hmm.
That might be something that tips the scale one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other laws come in and responsibilities come in once you get married. So think about it. And if you do get married or want to get married with 100% certainty, know the prenuptial agreement laws in your jurisdiction, because this is a prenup, says your prenup. I wrote this one, it's about 70 pages. I could tell you that this moves all these laws out of the way.
Well, Jonathan, we could talk about this, forever. There's so many different considerations. I thank you for having this conversation with me. Is there anything you want to add that I didn't ask or that wasn't brought up that you feel would be important to leave with our audience?
I would say before you get remarried after 50, don't rush into anything, okay? A lot of people are coming out of dead marriages, right? They haven't even slept together in 20 years. It's unbelievable, but true. Mm-hmm. Take your time, okay? I know the dating scene is a dumpster fire for a lot of people. Take your time, vet carefully, give it some time. And I'm talking about, measuring that in years, mm-hmm. and see how it goes.
Yeah. Great advice. Jonathan, thank you. I will link to all of your information. Jonathan has his own YouTube channel doing very well with all kinds of tidbits, advice, opinion.
No shortage of opinions. Come on over, JCN Law on Instagram and Twitter and on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll link to all of that. And again, thank you so much. And we'll see you on our next episode of Second Act TV.